Hello again, everyone. If you're watching this video, we are now in the last week of our CS22 course. Congratulations on making it this far. There is but one thing left to do in the last week of this course, which is the final exam. Now, since this course is online, you have the entire week to finish the final exam. However, you should be aware that the final exam will be in two parts. Part one will be available from Sunday of the last week until 11:59 p.m. of Wednesday of that last week. So that means starting Thursday of the last week, part one of the final exam will not be accessible. So you must finish it before 11:59 p.m. on Wednesday of the last week. Part two of the final exam will be available from Wednesday of the last week until 11:59 p.m. on Saturday of the last week. So starting Wednesday of the last week, you have until 11:59 p.m. on Saturday of the last week to complete part two of the final exam. Now, the final exam is comprehensive. It covers all the material on the course except for sorting. The sorting algorithms will not be on the final exam. In the finals area of Canvas, there is a document called Final Exam Good to Know, which will serve as your review sheet for the final exam in this course. Let's take a look at that file. I have it right here. So here's what it says. The final exam for CS22 will have two parts. We'll cover all the material on the course, except sorting. Part one will have 87 questions, which can be multiple choice, true or false, drop-down menu, and fill in the blank. They're just like the quizzes. Part one is exactly like the quizzes. However, no resources are allowed for part one, which is closed book, closed notes, closed PowerPoint, closed development tool like PyCharm, and also closed internet, except of course for Canvas. As it says here, part one will be available from Sunday of the last week of the course until 11:59 p.m. on Wednesday of the last week of the course. Once you begin part one, you will have 2 hours to complete it. So once you begin taking part one, your timer is set for 2 hours, and you have 2 hours to submit. If you take the entire 2 hours, you will automatically be logged out of the exam. Part two of the final is going to be the programming part of the final. As it says here, part two will have 5 programming questions. Now here is where you need to pay attention. For these questions, you will download a .py file and a .txt file. So for each of the 5 questions, you'll be asked to download a .py or Python file and a .txt or text file. It says you will then complete code for the main function and 1 or 2 other functions in the .py file. Now, when you download the Python or .py file, there may be some code that's already written. You're to leave that code there. You don't change code you're given. You also do not change the name of the files. The names of the files need to stay the same. And whatever code you're given needs to stay the same as well. You will simply add to that code. You may be asked to add code to the main function. You will also be asked to add code for at least 1 and possibly 2 other functions. Then it says when you have finished the program, you submit the .py file. You will not submit the .txt. You only submit the .py or Python file. Now in part two, it says you are allowed to use the book, the PowerPoint slides, any previous assignments to do part two of the final exam. However, it's still closed internet except for Canvas. So you can use the textbook. You can use the PowerPoint slides. You can use past homeworks and past projects we've done. You can have those open for this final exam. Closed internet, though. The only website you're allowed to use is Canvas. And as I stated earlier, Part 2 will be available from Wednesday of the last week of the course until 11:59 p.m. on Saturday of the last week. So when we reach 11:59 p.m. on Saturday, the final exam is over. No one will be allowed any access to the final after 11:59 p.m. on Saturday of the last week. Also, once you begin Part 2, you will have 3 hours to complete it. So you get 2 hours to complete Part 1, and you get 3 hours to complete Part 2. Now, what is it you have to know? Well, for Part 1 of the final, just review the quiz review sheets. Part 1 is exactly like the quizzes. Maybe you'll get some of the same questions you've already seen, but maybe you'll see some new ones. No guarantee there. But the quiz review sheets will be your study guide for Part 1 of the final exam. For Part 2 of the final, even though it's open book, open note, open PowerPoint, and open assignments, there are some things you should be familiar with. Here's a list of those. For starters, since you're downloading a file for each program, a text file that is, you should know these things: how to open a file for reading, how to use the with statement when opening a file, and how to access data in a file with a for loop and with a while loop. All of those 3 things can be found in Chapter 6 of the Gaddis PowerPoints. Now, you're not going to be required to use that with statement, but it really makes working with files a lot easier if you do use it. So I will not require the with statement, but I do highly recommend it. But again, for anything you see in the blue box, look at Chapter 6 of the Gaddis PowerPoints. That's your best reference for that. Now then, you must know how to create a class and create objects of that class, and how a class can inherit another class. That came early in the course. You should know how to make one class inherit another class and then create objects. Also know, this actually goes with files, how to remove the \n character from any data read from a file. That's the rstrip function. Again, look at Chapter 6 of the Gaddis PowerPoints. Know the following regarding stacks and queues: how to properly add and remove a node. We all know what stacks and queues works a certain way. And how to display the values of nodes beginning at the head or the tail. Now, a stack usually doesn't have a tail pointer, but a queue does. So know how to display the values, meaning traverse the entire list, beginning at the head or from beginning at the tail. Know the right way to do that for a stack or a queue. Also, to know things regarding doubly linked lists or circular linked lists. So for double linked lists or circular linked lists, you could get either one. You must know how to add and remove a node at the head or at the tail, and how to display the values of nodes beginning at the head or the tail. So how to traverse a double or circular linked list from the head or from the tail, and how to remove or add a node to a double or circular linked list at the head or the tail. Then we must know about binary search trees, not just binary trees. Specifically, I mean binary search trees. How to properly build one, and how to do all 3 types of traversals: in order, post order, and pre-order. You may recall recursion was involved in all 3 of those traversals. That rule still applies to a binary search tree. Again, not just a binary tree. I mean a binary search tree. Finally, how to create a hash table using both separate chaining and linear programming. The 2 techniques that we focused on for hash tables were separate chaining and linear probing. You must know how to create a hash table using both of those techniques. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is everything you need to know for this final exam. Word to the wise. If something is mentioned in this document, it's going to be on the final. Just as importantly, if it is not mentioned in this document, it will not be on the final. Specifically not on part 2. Now, part 1 can be anything that's been covered. That's based on the quizzes, so pretty much no limit on anything in part 1. Part 2, however, you go by what is listed in this document. Well, to wrap it up, I just want to say thank you for your patience and your hard work through this course. It's been an honor and a pleasure to be able to guide you through this. Thank you for your patience with me. I hope I've been equally as patient with you, and I wish you the best of luck in all your future studies. And as always, if you have any questions, please send me an email at kmuldrow@lbcc.edu.